Hello everyone. I've been invited by Mr. Roten to host this section of the notes due to my great knowledge of the US. I even ran for president. I won't give you my name for security reasons, but I think you can figure out who I am. Well, I guess we'll be talking about pirates after all. This should be pretty cool. Let's start with a quick drawing of what you think a pirate looks like. What we'll be looking at in this lecture is the real history of pirates. We'll find out what parts are real and what parts are not so real.
They're the scourge of all nations. The most infamous cutthroats of their day.
Let's board them and cut them to pieces!
During the 17th and 18th centuries, pirates in the Caribbean board thousands of ships.
Put our balls away!
Sacked dozens of cities.
Ladders up!
And violently chart a course for stolen treasure, murder, and revenge.
Why aren't they dead yet?
Larger than life.
I'm not gonna hang for you, Jack!
More dangerous than legend. They capture the imagination of the world and map out a fearsome chapter of history.
First, let's start with the basic myths. For example, pirates never actually had skull designs on their hats. Also, they didn't carry parrots around with them. Honestly, that wouldn't have been very smart at all. They'd be all squawking all the time and stuff. Another thing, no wooden legs. While it is true they often lost their legs, as we'll see later, they didn't replace them with wood. Finally, and very sadly, it seems they never did actually say "R." I don't know, I think I'll just keep on believing that one. Let's see where this whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing got started. It all began, of course, with economics. A new series of trade routes opened up after the discovery of the New World called the triangular trade. It wasn't about trading triangles, of course, it was simple a three-way trade route. Gold from the Americas went to Europe. Slaves from Africa went to the Americas, and finished products like tools and furniture from Europe went to both other areas. It was quite a thing and lots of money was being made. Eventually the countries of Europe started to fight over control of this area and the trade.
October 1492. Explorer Christopher Columbus searches for a western passage to the Orient. Under the sponsorship of Spain, he makes landfall in the Caribbean in an island chain now known as the Bahamas. 2 years later, Pope Alexander VI and the Treaty of Tordesillas grant Spain the exclusive right to the Caribbean and most of the New World.
They didn't know how much land they were even talking about. Spain and Portugal worked with the Pope, drew a line on the globe and said, all of this will be ours.
Driven by an insatiable quest for wealth, Spain conquers the Aztecs, the Incas, and most of the Mayan civilization.
The whole area becomes known as the Spanish Main because it's the mainland where the Spanish tap unbelievable riches, billions of dollars worth of gold and silver.
The first group that we truly consider pirates of the Caribbean were the buccaneers.
There is no treasure to be mined in the Caribbean, but the islands offer a much-needed stopping point on the 6 to 8 week journey to Spain.
Spanish would stop and get water and food for their trip home. And one of the things they did was they released livestock on these islands, and the cattle and hogs flourished.
This plentiful food supply also attracts a very tough breed of adventurers. Maverick intruders, mostly from France, England, and Holland.
Some of them are riffraff, former prisoners, they're people who can't find jobs, vagabonds. If they can get on a ship, work their way over, they can jump ship and end up living on these islands and living off the meat. It's also a place for adventurers.
And they learned how to take strips of the meat and dry it over racks. And these racks were called boucans. They learned this technique from the local native Indians. So they became known as the boucaniers. That's sort of the French term, and then that got anglicized into the word buccaneer. So originally, buccaneer meant jerky makers.
During the early 1600s, the island of Hispaniola, now the Dominican Republic and Haiti, becomes an unofficial home for buccaneers from France and England.
And then they would sell this jerky to the passing ships. And occasionally they, being enterprising souls, they might take a ship.
When the Spanish started getting rattled about this French presence and English presence, they started killing off the wild cattle and pigs. Then the buccaneer had to really try to find some other way of making a living.
And so if that community stops hunting boar and bull and they start hunting people, most specifically Spaniards.
The Spanish created the Pirates of the Caribbean.
The buccaneers were a group of Frenchmen who really had no reason to be in the Spanish Main at all. They came basically because they were poor and had nothing better to do. Spain didn't want them there, so they killed off the cows on the islands so they'd have nothing to eat. They still didn't leave. Instead, they started stealing from ships that came by. It was about survival, but there is no question they were pirates. Ack, that was freaky. Dang, Mr. Roten, I'm old, what are you trying to do to me? Well, this better be funny. Wow. Really? That's the joke? Grow up, man.